welcome to our episode here of Between Two Teachers, and we have a lot of news to share with you today. My name is Consuelo Lara.
I'm Madeline Cronenberg.
And some very exciting things have happened up in Sacramento in terms of the 1505 charter legislation, charter school legislation. So we're going to share that, and then also the news about the district in that area. Okay.
So let me start with the charter school legislation. It was there a week ago, last weekend, there was a marathon meeting where ultimately the different sides in the issue around charter schools and the legislation in general met. So there was someone from the governor's staff, there was Superintendent Thurman, there were folks from the charter sector, California Charter Schools Association, and folks from the California Teachers Association, CTA. And what came out of that was a compromise that was announced on Wednesday. And what will happen here, the important thing for us, and as we've discussed with you over the many months that we've been talking about this, is that districts will now be allowed to consider the financial impact of the children in the traditional district, on the children in the traditional district schools when looking at a charter petition. And they can reject the charter petition if it's going to have a negative financial impact on the district. That is a giant step forward. It doesn't close existing high-performing charter schools. That was never an intent. It doesn't do that. It doesn't put them in harm's way or at risk, but it means that there cannot be this unregulated expansion at the expense of our most vulnerable children. And that is a gigantic success. So the steps that had to happen next, or after that was agreed on Wednesday, the technicality was that it was in something called the Appropriations Committee with Senator Portofino, and yesterday it came out of the Appropriations Committee. The next step for it is that it will go to be, it still can be amended, and after that it will be voted on. So we need to continue to advocate for it, but it is a very powerful, we're in a much better place than we were before, and I think it's made a huge difference. And I really do believe that we can thank the voters of California for this, because if we had elected Mr. Villagrosa and Mr. Tuck,
Wow.
This would not have happened.
Yeah.
And the whole landscape around education in California would be entirely different. It's because CTA did the investment, did educate the public, and the voters did elect Mr. Governor Newsom and Superintendent Thurman, who then were able to take it and move it forward. And CTA, I cannot say too much about them. The teachers union stood up. Yes. They invested in it. They invested in making sure that the public understood what's happening, and they invested in making sure that the legislators understood. And they invested in other things. Not only did they do that, but the Democratic Party stood up.
Yes.
And spoke
absolutely.
up for
It's
a moratorium.
part of their platform now.
Exactly. It is
Yeah.
part of the platform.
Every Democrat has to understand that.
And all of our Democratic legislators needed to understand that.
Yeah.
Right? And that it's not an insignificant part of the platform. It's an incredibly important part of the platform. We cannot privatize our education system. And so the one thing I want to add to this is that over the last week, there is a website called michaelkohas.com, and this, which is a very unusual name, but this website has on it a compilation of documents from a Freedom of Information Act. And so the person who's underwriting this website asks for no donations, and this is somebody who's committed to making sure that this is handled themselves. And what has happened on this website is that he's done Freedom of Information Act requests on a variety of things in Los Angeles that he or she is interested in, but this person also became interested in the privatization of LAUSD. And so they went and did a Freedom of Information Act on the California Charter School Association.
Sure.
And they got it because the California Charter Schools Association was connected to, in a very peculiar way, Superintendent Buettner, who's the superintendent of the Los Angeles Unified School District. And it turns out the California Charter Schools Association was co-founded by a former member of the Los Angeles Unified School Board. That's who the founder is.
And conflict of interest
there's
at all?
Well, it probably was after she wasn't on anymore, but nonetheless, there is a huge. It's all very connected. So, anyway, there are several documents. I'm going to link them in here. I've tweeted about them and retweeted other people's. There's a blogger named Jennifer Berkshire. I've retweeted what she has put out. There's materials from this huge amount of information that people are beginning to go through, and I just want to read this one thing. That what you have are what was one of the most interesting things is an executive summary of a lobbyist's effort to explain to the members of the California Charter Schools Association new strategies around growing charter schools in California, expanding them. And essentially they said, for many years, we did not suffer blowback due to our inability to craft a shared vision for what the traditional system is supposed to evolve into. What they had as a vision was to have 1 million California children in charter schools by 2020. That was their public vision. And that would mean, if that happened, and that was certainly where they were marching, and those children that they're talking about are West Contra Costa children, LAUSD children, and Oakland children. They're not talking about Piedmont children and Palo Alto children. So what they say here is, this is no longer the case. People are being led to conclude that the growth of charter schools presumes damage being done to public education more broadly, and that is leading more people to oppose charter schools. And that is because that is the fact.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
that fact is what we addressed in 1505, right? And it doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't give us back the $27.9 million, right? But it doesn't let that double, which is what would happen had we not done this.
Exactly. And as a school board member, the issue is local control. You believe in local control of our schools within the school district. That's what this was about. So we can determine that we can't afford losing any more money, then we cannot afford to expand. We cannot afford to bring in new ones. And if they go appealing to the county as well, they can look at, we submit our budget to the county. So if anybody knows how much money we have, the county knows that as well. So they as well need to look at that in terms of letting, because they can still go to the county, right? But they cannot go.
But the county can now also consider the financial impact.
And that's huge for us as a school board member. I just feel like this is such a relief, because I remember first being told, well, you can't vote against them. I thought, well, isn't that undemocratic to tell me I can't vote against something? I'm supposed to be able to vote, my conscience or my opinion. So this is something that really makes it democratic, I think, so that we can, in fact, look at our financial situation, and we look at all children and all children's needs, not just those groups, and kind of segregated, may I say, groups. So this is really a big win for us.
It's a big win for the children of California.
Oh gosh, yes.
That is who are the big winners.
Yes.
Right, and what I just want everyone to understand very clearly is that this was a fight. And when you look at the documents that were released, I mean, if you have any interest at all, because they are fascinating to me, the level of detail and expertise that went in to the other side and how they went ahead and fought the fight. And the reason
Money
it
they
was
have.
huge money, it was a lot of political strategy, and the only reason that we are where we are today is that CTA took them on.
Yes,
That is
absolutely.
flat out the only reason,
I think
right?
so,
Because
yeah.
the teachers union, I mean, the reason that Mr. Thurmond is superintendent is because CTA supported him, right? That the
Absolutely.
teachers in the state of California supported him. He wouldn't have won without that, and I'm sure if he were here, he would say that.
Yeah.
So that's not big news. There's no secret about that. And anyway, we are in a much better place right now from no matter how you look at this. And I'm going to put links to these documents and some other documents that were released by a man named Ben Austin. They seem to be, those documents talk a little bit more about Los Angeles, but if you're interested, you'll get the picture of what they're talking about. There's also a release now, a new release about how the real estate, the charter school sector looks to real estate as a opportunity.
Yes, that's
which
our
we've talked about
next.
before, and we won't go into
Yes.
this time, but maybe next time,
Yes.
because that also applies
Oh, yeah.
here
That's
in
a whole
West
other
Contra
area.
Costa.
Yeah. So we just want to say personally, thank you, Mr. Thurman. Thank you, Mr. Newsom. Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. I mean,
Yes.
there's a million people. Of
Thank
course,
you,
Thank you,
CTA.
CTA. We are eternally grateful for this move that you made for public education. And bringing this home to our district, there are some charters in our district that are coming up for renewal. And, you know, we want to be fair. Nobody's out like, you know, we got to close these schools at all. We want it to be fair. We want them to be as high quality as our public schools. We want to make sure that they're not in any violations. And those are the things that we look at as a board. And so some of these, we have some deadlines coming up. First one will be November 16, where there will be a charter renewal. You have concerns, do your research. You can contact us. It's one of the things we get the most ask is more information. We try to give you as much information as we can. And then what you can do. So we let you know where things are happening so that you can come and voice your opinion about those things. Because we need to hear from you, the district constituents. So
thank you. We now have a Facebook page, so please look for us on Facebook and follow us on Facebook. We have, you can follow us with a hashtag #BetweenTwoTeachers on Instagram, and this week we added a Twitter channel, so you can find us on Twitter, and there I've linked all of these materials are also on each of those social media channels, as well as our new Between Two Teachers daily newspaper, which is also available. And so what I'm really hoping is that people follow us and like us and share it out to other people in your networks. Because what is important here is that more and more people become aware of the big issues in education, and that's really what we try to share out with you.
absolutely. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Till next time.
Okay, bye-bye.